Hi everybody, Dan Illman here, taking a look at the feature race at Del Mar on Sunday. It's race number 8, the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby for 3-year-olds on the turf. It's a race, it's a card you can play with your very own DRF Bets account. Sign up now at drf.com/bet and get 10 times the sign-up bonus. Here's the field, and it is a big one for the Del Mar Derby on Sunday, carded as race number 8. $250,000 is the purse. We'll take the field in post position order, beginning with a 20-to-1 shot trained by Jim Cassidy. That's the number 1 Epicol, who was listed as a first-time gelding for his most recent race, and I thought Victor Espinoza gave him a beautiful ride. He broke from an outside post position, and often in those situations, horses are hung out wide, but Victor was able to find a coveted pace-tracking, ground-saving trip entering the first turn, and he ran really well, Epicol, after that, only beaten a length at 31-to-1 by Majestic Eagle. It represented a career best Beyer speed figure for Epicol, but I wonder if it was all about the trip. This is more of a one-run closer, I think, than anything else, and there's a lot of speed in this race. Epicol likely to drop back, still eligible for a non-winners of 2 life, still eligible for some upside, but I think others entice just a little bit more on the win end. There's a negative formulator fact. Take it as a grain of salt. The horse is 20-to-1 on the morning line, 4%, 30-cent ROI for Jim Cassidy, third off the layoff over the past 5 years with 3-year-olds on turf, but a horse that got a very nice trip last time out. He'll have to work something out from the inside post, trying to rally around or through a big bulky field. The number 2 is Desert Stone. This is a horse that once Richard Baltas got to stretch him out in Southern California, he responded with 2 victories, one at this 1.125 distance, and he was tested for the first time in Southern California by Baltas on the opening day feature, the Oceanside Stakes, on July the 18th. And Desert Stone did not break well. He took a bobble at the start. He was last on the rail. He tried to advance entering the far turn, and he finished evenly in between horses. He was just too far back, I thought, to make a dent. He galloped out past the rest of the field, and I think the longer the better. He's going to stretch out from a mile to 1.125 miles here, and I think he's going to get the right pace set up with a more alert break. It's up to Tyler Gaffalione to work out a trip. Again, the inside posts going 1.125 miles at Del Mar, they got to come out of the chute, and there are a lot of horses on the outside trying to work their way inside to save as much ground as possible exiting the chute, and often that tightens up horses in the first 3 post positions. It's up to Gaffalione to work out a trip, but I think Desert Stone was compromised last time out by a poor break and being too far back. River Boy in the number 3 is certainly the horse to beat. This one won the La Jolla last time out. The horse is 5 for 5, his last 5 in Southern California on the turf, and in the La Jolla last time out, he was the odds-on favorite. He was supposed to win, but things weren't exactly going right for this horse. They went fast early, and when the pace setters stepped on the brakes entering the backstretch, River Boyne picked up the bit and almost ran right over the top of those horses. Really was eager, had to be steadied a little bit by Flavien Prat, then got to the outside, turning into the stretch, and was able to put those horses away as much the best. I would have liked to have seen him kick away from Arawak, a horse we'll get to in a little bit. A little easier in the stretch. I mean, Arawak seems pretty exposed after many starts, but River Boyne just keeps cranking out good performance after good performance, and this is the horse to beat and a must-use in any kind of multiple race wager. Restrained Vengeance won the Oceanside at 11-to-1, then chased River Boyne in vain in the Grade 3 La Jolla last time out. 1.125 miles is a little bit of a concern for me. This horse got a nice trip in the Oceanside, hopped back to his left lead in the stretch after making a 4-wide bid turning into the lane. I'm always a little bit concerned when I see them hop back to their left lead, then stretch out in distance, even in the La Jolla at 1.16 miles. We'll see what we get at 1.125 miles, but he does have good tactical speed. The aforementioned Arawak finished second to River Boyne, and he was coming at River Boyne a little bit at the end. I'm also concerned about the 1.125 miles for this horse. I think he does have some tactical speed. I think since Doug O'Neill has taken him over, he wants to take him to the back of the pack and try to make one run, but he's been beaten by Restrained Vengeance. He's been beaten several times by River Boyne. He's a horse that I wonder how much more is left to give after 14 lifetime starts. Have we seen his best with a 90 Beyer speed figure being his top right now? The 6 Publius Cyrus certainly has the ability to win this race. 8-to-1 on the morning line for Kent DeZormo. He's won his last 2 races. The problem is he's only started once this year, and that was way back in February in the Baffle Stakes going down the hill at 6.5 furlongs. Kent DeZormo gave him a great ground-saving trip. He angled 3 wide turning into the stretch, and he ran really well over a Fleet Ascent, who's a pretty nice horse in his own right, finishing second second in the Oceanside on opening day. Publilius Cyrus has the ability to win around 2 turns. We've seen that on several occasions. But for him to go 1 1/8 off this extended layoff is a little bit of a concern. I do think he has the ability and the figures to win this race, but I am concerned about this distance off of the layoff. A long shot you may want to consider is the number 7, that is Andesh, who ran against Epical and Majestic Eagle, who won that race. We'll get to him in a moment. In an optional claiming race at Del Mar earlier in the meet. It was his first start in North America, and he was able to save some ground, and then he seemed like he lost a little bit of focus entering the turn. Kent DeZarmo had to get the whip out on him. He got into the clear and upper stretch, and he finished evenly. Trainer Phil D'Amato is very sharp, and he's putting blinkers on. Maybe that will get this horse to focus better and run a more complete race in his second start of the form cycle. I wouldn't be surprised if this horse runs well. He might be best used underneath in single race exotics. The 8 Ride a Comet is the second choice on the morning line at 7-2. This horse just ran 3rd in the Grade 2 Hall of Fame Stakes at Saratoga for Mark Casse. That race was run over extremely yielding ground, but it featured a very fast pace. And Ride a Comet, coming from 10 lengths off of the pace, had the best of it from a pace setup. He got a great ride from Jose Ortiz, who could have angled him wide on the far turn, instead decided to save as much ground as possible, and it worked out when a hole opened up turning into the stretch. He was just outfinished by Raging Bull and Murad, 2 horses that will run on Saturday at Saratoga in the Saranac Stakes. Watch that race, see if Ride a Comet has been flattered by those 2 horses, but prior to that effort, a couple of nice performances at Woodbine going 1 turn. That's Ride a Comet, the number 8, a horse that is certainly a contender. Take the 101 as the number 9. He should be forwardly placed. Timeform US actually has him out there on the lead, and this pace should be fast considering a big field with several speeds. Take the 101's in good form. He won the Snow Chief Stakes at this distance on turf, making the dirt to turf move 2 starts back. I thought he got a nice pace setup, just sitting behind moderate splits, and just was able to take it to that field in the stretch. Nice performance on dirt last time out. The key is, will he be able to shake loose at some point? The 12 Animosity is a filly taking on the boys. Maybe she doesn't have the gas or the goods to take the 101. If that's the case, there is a chance that Take the 101, for a very hot trainer in Brian Coroner, can maybe slip away entering the turn. I still have some class concerns with this Calbred, but he's in sharp form. The 10 is Kazan, who's won his last 2 races, and I thought he won his last race very nicely as the favorite at Del Mar. First start against winners, no pace. They went the half in 49-4 in a 1/16 event, and he still was able to kick them down in the lane. This horse cost a lot of money as a 2-year-old in training and might be living up to his potential, but he has to improve from a speed figure standpoint. Majestic Eagle beat Epical, beat a couple of these in his most recent start. Boy, the trip couldn't have gotten better for Giovanni Franco and Neil Drysdale that day. The 60-1 pace setter bolted entering the backstretch, and that gave Franco the opportunity to take the bull by the horns, grab the lead with Majestic Eagle, and he just said goodbye to that field despite failing to change leads in the stretch. He's now paired up 88 Beyer tops. That often is an indicator of another forward move, and another forward move would certainly put him in the mix. He can be forwardly placed as well. I think he could be closer on the pace projector, but he just had a great trip last time out. Animosity's a filly, yet another tough outside post. She drew the outside in the Del Mar Oaks, was hustled to set very fast fractions. So draw a line through the Del Mar Oaks. She was probably overmatched to begin with, but that trip was never going to work out. The San Clemente 2 starts back. She was coming from far out of it over a course that might have favored speed. War Heroine went to the lead that day. I think she's okay. She ran well in the honeymoon against fillies. 3 starts back, going 1 1/8. But this just seems like a tough ask, chasing from the far outside on a hot pace. We'll take a look at my top pick for the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby. Certainly River Boyne is the horse to beat, but I think Desert Stone, with a more alert break, can work out a good trip under Tyler Gaffalione. We've seen the slight improvement from the Buyers scale, and last time out in the Oceanside again, bobbling at the start did him no favors, then buried down inside, angled out in the stretch, galloped out past the field. I'm hoping 1 1/8 is what the doctor ordered for Desert Stone. I'm going 2, 3, 6, and 8 in the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, the feature at Del Mar on Sunday, a race you can play with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get 10 times the sign-up bonus. DRF.com/bet. Approximate post time for the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, 5:30 Pacific. Best of luck.